Okay, let's do a quick overview of what the various layers mean in KiCad. So right now I have a design here that I made, and you can see there are various different colors, and those correspond to different layers in the design. And so just to go over what each of these actually mean, I have a quick little picture of an actual PCB here, and I'll be pointing stuff out here as it's relevant. So the first thing to know, of course, is that a PCB is essentially a piece of fiberglass with copper on the top and bottom to form the wires. And so the copper layers, forward.copper, back.copper, so top and bottom, that is essentially what the copper is for these wires. And you can see that in this PCB, the copper is forming these wires. Now, certain PCBs are going to have adhesive, right? So we need some way of telling the manufacturer where to put some adhesive. For the most part, you're not going to have to worry about this. Now, paste corresponds to solder paste. Sometimes you have the manufacturer put solder paste onto it. That just makes it easier to actually assemble the PCB. Again, generally, you're not going to have to worry about that. Silkscreen, forward, back. So silkscreen is essentially how you put little pictures on the PCB. So you can see stuff here where stuff is actually printed onto the PCB. That, again, is using silkscreen. Now, F mask, B mask, that essentially tells the manufacturer of the PCB where to not put this green stuff, right? So this green stuff is called solder mask, and essentially what it does is it makes it so you can't apply solder to the underlying copper, right? So it might be an enamel or other plastic, right? But sometimes, as you can see in this corner, you don't want that mask to be there, and so you can kind of set stuff to not have the mask there, to not have the solder mask there. Anything with user, don't worry about. That's essentially for your own reference. Eco, I'm not sure. Now, an important one is this edge cuts. So edge cuts is what is going to define the actual edge of the board. And so when the manufacturer actually makes this, they're going to use that edge cuts to figure out where that cut should be. Now you can also see margin. The margin is really just all about showing where parts are, right? So a lot of times if you have a part here, you don't want them to be touching, of course, and so you add a bit of margin, or courtyard is another term for it. Basically, an area of where you don't want anything else. FFab, BFab, these are also basically just reference things. For the most part, you don't have to worry about them. But yeah, that's basically all of the layers of importance that you have in KiCad. This will, of course, change based on whether you have a two-layer PCB4, but for the most part, that should give you a good idea of exactly what each of the layers are.